So I read every single one of SarahJMaas's books, so you don't have to. Ooh. Let's deep dive into this. How I actually got into SarahJMaas is that it was this. This book was the catalyst to my obsession on buying all the series that SarahJMaas owns and has written. And this I saw a lot on TikTok, I saw a lot in the bookstore being promoted, I saw this a lot around campus when I was at varsity, and I was like, you know what, I might as well read it. And if you don't know what it's about already, it's about this girl named Farah, and she kills this wolf. And from killing the wolf, she killed the wrong wolf. And then the world just starts tumbling from there. So if you're into fantasy, this is a really great series. Okay? Starter point into dipping your toes into this like fairy realms and magic and all of these things. I think this is more young adult. The world building isn't that great compared to other series that SarahJMaas has. It's very simple, it's very easy to read. Well, for me, it was really easy to read. And it's a great starter point into fantasy. Overall, these books took me around over a month to read. And that's partly because I wasn't at home. I started it on the 2nd of Feb, and I think I finished it around the 5th of March. Most of Feb, I read these 3 books, and then at the end of Feb and into March, I read these 2. I think the biggest reason why I loved this series so much is that the relationships in these books were amazing. I really enjoyed the relationships, and I really enjoyed the characters. They all were unique, and they were all a bit different from each other. Would I recommend this to someone who, has read a lot of fantasy books? No, I would not. This one is a great one if you want to get into fantasy, but you don't know where to start. I would suggest doing this, and then you can see from there what you want to do. My favorite book out of this series was actually, unpopular opinion, was this one, A Court of Frost and Starlight. Many people don't like this book because it's so short, but after what happens in these first 3 books and reading this, I loved it. It was an easy read, it's short, and it sets up for the last book. But SarahJMaas has not said if there's another book coming after this. Out of 5 stars, I will rate this a 3, because now I've read quite a lot of fantasy books now, and this doesn't do it for me anymore. I think I was just so utterly in love with this because this is my first time reading such a hardcore fantasy book, and having such beautiful characters in it that I fell in love, and then moving on to different series, that sort of dissipated because I realized this actually isn't as good as other series. Funnily enough, I actually wanted to read all of SarahJMaas's books because I realized I really loved ACOTAR so much. This book, anyway. So I wanted to read all of SarahJMaas's books because I don't know, I'm that type of person is that if I like a series from an author, I will read all of their series that they have because I like their style of writing. Very scared to read the Throne of Glass series because it has 8 books. So I was like, okay, this is going to be put on last. And what did I do instead? I read the Crescent City series. And the Crescent City series is massive. These books are extremely thick, and one of the big things is that people don't really, what I've seen is that people don't really want to read the Crescent City series. I don't know why, but this series is very underhyped. This was a big jump from what we saw in ACOTAR. So this takes place in a very ultra futuristic world. It's very different to what's seen in ACOTAR. ACOTAR is giving medieval, this is giving New York, but like 200 years in the future. So this is the first book, House of Earth and Blood, and you follow a main character named Bryce, and there is quite a lot of lore going on in this first book. This was the best first book I've ever read in my life. This caught me in a chokehold. And basically Bryce is partying, she's drinking, she's getting lost in the world, and then a murder happens, and she sort of gets tasked to figure out who murdered that person. So this, when you read this, you don't want to put it down. This book, I think it took me 2 days to read this book. I know she's very thick. These books took a little longer to read. They were very slow. If I'm being honest, I didn't really like this book, The House of Flame and Shadow, as much. The third book wasn't my cup of tea. The only good book in this series was the first book, and then the second and third book sort of fell off the wagon. I don't know. This is my personal opinion. I think a lot of people can agree that the second and third book of Crescent City becomes a lot slower. It takes a lot longer to get into the book, and there's not much lure, you know, in this book. The first book is insane. Beautiful, beautiful story. This only took me about a week to read. That's what I've got written down in my diary. So if you're sort of interested into more of a futuristic fantasy, this is great. This I love. The world building, I think, was a lot better than ACOTAR. There was a lot more descriptors. The character building, if I'm being honest, it's sort of on the same level as ACOTAR. So overall, I would give this series a 3.5. This book, I would give actually 5 stars for. These two can get a 3. And now the moment you have all been waiting for, me talking about the Throne of Glass series. But this Throne of Glass series, here's SarahJMaas, if you don't know what she looks like, the queen herself. This took me around a month to read. This blew my brains. This actually blew my brain. If you are a beginner into fantasy, I wouldn't suggest this. Go read ACOTAR first and then come to this. The world building, the character development, the plot line is insane. You would never think something would happen until you read this. The way SarahJMaas is able to construct such a good plot line in terms of that you never know what's going to happen. This is the definition of this series. You never know what's going to happen. The secrets that emerge from this is absolutely insane, and I don't think people realize how insane this series is. At first I was very scared to read an 8-book series because I was like, that is a lot of books, and the last book is massive. But the funny thing is, it's the same size as the Crescent series books. The first 4 books are kind of small for me. These are considered small. And then we get into medium and then large. So I think it took me around a week and a half to read the first 3 books of the series. And then I sort of got a bit, I don't want to say bored, but the further you get into the series, it takes a bit longer to get into the actual plot line, which I understand because you're sort of building into what's currently happening. So if you do not know what the Throne of Glass series is about, is that you follow the main character, Selena Sardothian. Depending on which book you read first, because most people start with Throne of Glass, most people start with Assassin's Blade, but you follow Selena Sardothian. If you want to go first with Assassin's Blade, she is a trained assassin, and Assassin's Blade is basically a short stories. You have the Pirate Lord, the Healer, the Desert, the Underworld, and the Empire. So it's a short story to what's happening in Selena's life and where she's going, what she's been up to. I read this book third. Even if you do read it first, it doesn't really change your perspective, but I think it's better to read it third so that information is still fresh in your brain with what happens from the third book onwards. Normally start with Throne of Glass, and you're still following Selena Sardothian, who is an assassin, and this is when she actually fights in a competition to become the king's assassin. This had me in a chokehold. I absolutely loved the world building in actually this whole series, but this, insane. Things you do not expect. Insane. Crown of Midnight, it took too long for me. I wasn't a big fan of it, but The Hair of Fire, or Air, however you want to say it, I loved this book. This was probably one of my favorite books in the series, but not my absolute favorite because we will be getting to that. Queen of Shadows was also sort of a iffy book for me. I mean, it was good, but I don't know. It was sort of an moment for me. And then we get to our tandem read. So if you don't know what a tandem read is, it's when you read 2 books at the same time. And I did not read these at the same time. I did not do the tandem read. I read Empire of Storms first, and then I went to Tower of Dawn. And people I don't know why people don't like the Tower of Dawn, because it happens in a completely different place to what's happening in here. Because there's things going on in the Empire Storms, and this happens with other side characters. And people didn't like that. People didn't really want to read it. And I think that's what happens with tandem reads, is that sort of you probably get more sucked into, well, I know you will get more sucked into Empire Storms, but when you read Tower of Dawn afterwards, it's such a nice refresh of what's going on. You get introduced to some new characters in Tower of Dawn. You can already tell I like books in a series that give a whole new refresh sort of feel. This one I loved a lot because it was something so different and not so repetitive, and I fell in love. This is my favorite book out of the whole Throne of Glass series, Tower of Dawn. I love this. It was my favorite. And then you get to the biggest monstrosity, which is the last book, which is Kingdom Ash. This book was also insane. This left me speechless. The last book of Throne of Glass should be leaving you speechless. This is absolutely diabolical. It's beautiful and it is unreal. And that's the thing, like the best books are always last. Tower of Dawn, this is book 7 and 8. These two books, the best books of the series. And I just love SarahJMaas so much. I think it's absolutely insane that her mind is able to plot such huge occurrences. Like this is eight books, and you manage to plot everything into this last book and tie everything together. I don't know how she does it. I really don't. It's insane. So if you really want a series that's big into world building, amazing character development, insane plot lines, secrets, stories, this is probably the best series I've ever read in my life. I'm not joking. I would give this an overall of 4 stars in terms of everything that I've discussed. I will go to my grave like this, sleeping like this. I hope I get other people wanting to read SarahJMaas's books. This is not a sponsor. This has all been funded by my mother or myself. Okay? I bought these books with my own money. Will I buy them again? I would 100% buy them again in the hard copy, but obviously I can only afford paperback books. If you are interested in the series, you can comment down below. If you want to, or if you've already read this series or any one of these series, you can comment how you thought about it in the comments, and I'll see you guys later, and I hope you have a great day wherever you are.